Not able to find a graphics card? Is that really bringing you down? Well, with the InWin B1, you don't need it. Finally building it. Welcome to Simple Rud. Now we're finally getting to the InWin B1 build. I know I did the paint prep like a year ago, literally. But I had other projects and I was really holding out, hoping to get an APU from AMD, and they still just haven't released anything newer than 3400G. So with that, I decided to go 11th gen Intel. Now as you can see, I have the Z motherboard and I have the K series processor. And if you watched the video before this, you know that I went through and dialed that back just for this build. This case comes with a 200 watt power supply. And as you can see, it's also tiny, which means there's only 60 millimeters of clearance for your cooler, which means you can't really pump out more than your 200 watts anyways, because you're going to overheat in this thing. So that is why I went Noctua, which really is the best way if you're air cooling. And if you're air cooling small form factor, you're just not going to beat it. Now with that, I did do the NHL9i. Now with the fan it comes with, it's a 15 millimeter fan, which gives that in the heatsink 37 of my 60 millimeters. So I took that fan off and I put on the A9 fan, which is the 25 millimeter thickness, which did take up some of my clearance, but it also almost doubles the airflow, which is huge. Now on top of that, this case came with an 80 mil installed. Now, without paying attention, I ordered a Noctua without realizing that it's actually about double the thickness, meaning that this bracket that comes with it for the regular thickness won't fit. You won't be able to install the motherboard, and the fan literally doesn't fit. So I went off of this and I designed and 3D printed a prototype just to see if it would fit. And it did. My first one wasn't the greatest, it could use some improvements, so I did that. And I came up with something much more firm. Now this will hold the fan in place, it looks really nice, and it doesn't interfere with the motherboard. So that as well over doubles the airflow getting air out of this case. So this should help maintain the 3.9 gigahertz that I want my CPU to run at. Now, does my girlfriend need that in this computer? No, she really doesn't. She's running stuff for her Cricut and Microsoft Word and Excel and, you know, YouTube and stuff. So it's kind of overkill, and this is more of my dream build than hers, but it's still awesome and I'm still doing it. Now, one of her limitations was she didn't want a ton of RGB. So there's hardly any, but with that I did get the G-Skill Royal. 16 gigabytes, 2 sticks, and it's 3200. So it is a little more power hungry than your average, but I wasn't going to do just 2666 speed. It's not fair to anybody. So that'll ramp up. Now on top of that, to add the extra kill, I went with Gen 4 NVMe drive. Faster than anything Gen 3 is going to put out. So it's still a performance gap, but it wasn't just throwing money away. In a sense, it's still more than needed. But that's pretty much this build. It's pretty straightforward, it's small, and it's still custom. As you can see, I did the custom paint. I'm going to do a little bit of painting on the motherboard, and she's going to decide on a vinyl to put on the front as well to really give it that, you know, extra custom touch. And I think I've talked in circles enough, so let's get to building this thing. Well, it's complete. And the build wasn't too bad. You would think it's simple because there's not much to it, and really in the grand scheme of things it was simple. But one thing to recognize in a case as small is there's just no cable management. You kind of do what you can, but overall you just kind of hope that you can hide it when it's all said and done. The HD audio, for instance, barely reached and fit. Now it did fit and it's hooked up, but it was kind of a tight squeeze. Okay, so the fan bracket does work, with an exception. The 80 by 25 millimeter fan still needed a little Dremel love. So took one of the bottom corners, sanded it down, and now she fits and she closes. Before, you just couldn't snap it close, and if you did get it to snap close, it would just pop open. All in all, not bad considering it still fit. Now, from there, I did get it, once it was built, I did go through and see what the thermals look like, and 3.9 might be pushing a little much. Now, I say that because when I ran Prime 95, granted that is a stress test, and chances are this computer is never going to see any kind of stress like that. But, we'll say but, Prime 95, it did hit, 95C, and it started to thermal throttle down to about 3.6 gigahertz, not the 3.9 that I was wanting. And it still performs great. And honestly, sitting at an idle, it's about 40C. So I'm guessing when you're up and running, you're probably going to be sitting, between probably around the 70 area. Now, the other nice thing is it doesn't get very loud because, well, you got two fans. Honestly, unless you're in a dead silent room, you probably won't hear it at all. So that's really nice. And I just love how this case came out. One thing you'll notice in the build is I did not utilize the hot swap SSD slots in the back, but they are hooked up. So if the 1 terabyte is ever not enough, you take off 4 screws and you pop in, an SSD with however much you need, which is really nice and really handy too. I think that ends this video, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to ask questions. My fan bracket, I will be working on getting that on Thingiverse. In fact, by the time this video airs, it might actually be on Thingiverse. So if you're building an InWin and you want to take a go at trying to ram too much fanage in there, you should be able to, and I'll try to include that link. Again, thanks for watching.